Hey there, I am so excited about this episode because I am reconnecting with an old friend of mine who I don't even know the last time we spoke, probably 10 years ago. Park Howell, he is known as the world's most industrious storyteller, having grown purpose driven brands by as much as 600%. He is an Emmy Award-winning 40 plus year veteran in the advertising industry and hosts the popular weekly Business of Story podcast, authored Brand Bewitchery, and co authored The Narrative Gym for Business. Park recently launched Story Cycle Genie, which we are going to get into, to help business leaders craft a lucrative brand story strategy in minutes, not months. He is sought after internationally to help executives excel through the stories they tell. Park, so awesome to have you on the show. Thank you.
Well, Kate, thank you for having me. You're right. It has been about 10 years when I launched my Business of Story podcast. Way back when you were among some of my first guests. So it's just so great to reconnect with you again.
Love it. So, so fun. And it's funny because I don't know however it happens, but this is the fun part of social media when things pop up and I'm thinking, oh, I haven't talked to Park in forever. So I reached out to you. I think it was on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, let's reconnect and get you on the show because you have just you've had this really incredible career. I was kind of reading over, I'm thinking, well, what has Park been doing for the past decade? A lot of things. I was thinking about how I really wanted to approach this show and make sure that everyone listening gets, obviously, with every episode, a lot of value. And there's so many different directions we could take because of just your work and what you've been involved with storytelling. I know storytelling is such a big topic today as it's always been. And so I'm excited to dive into that and excited to dive into Story Cycle Genie that people can take advantage of. But let's start with, because I think it's interesting to see what you think about your body of work, like all the things collectively that you've done throughout your career, throughout your life. How would you describe to someone your body of work?
Boy, I've never been asked that before, Kate. My work is really all stemmed from creative curiosity. So I have dabbled in a lot of different creative pursuits. My very first one, when I started in the third grade, was learning how to play the piano because my Norwegian grandmother, Mabel, sat down and played the piano so amazingly that I said, I want to be able to do that. And I started studying, piano and practicing and so forth. And I just naturally started writing songs. Don't know where they came from. Just started writing them down. And I just, as a little kid, wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And so much so that it got the attention of Dennis Behrens, one of my favorite high school teachers of all time, who sadly just recently passed away, but he was 92 years old. So he led a good long life. And Dennis saw in me, and I wasn't a particularly great piano player. In fact, I kind of had stage fright. My wife will say, Park, you can speak in front of 5,000 people, but you can't play the piano for five people in our living room. If they're strangers, no, I can't. But anyways, Dennis Behrens, he taught me about music composition and theory and even put together a class for five of us to take to get a credit for. And that launched me into then my university work where I got a degree in music composition and theory, not thinking, Kate, I'd be this great composer, but I was just fascinated, curious as to why does music work? What is the structure? What is the functionality of it? The chord progressions, the tonality, the dissonance, all of that. And that, I think, really describes my body of work from being a writer to being a musician to still writing songs for fun to creating now working in AI and in the story world. And what I've really found in all this curiosity of why does this work? How does it work? And now let me try it on my suspects to see if it really does work. And it does work. That I've moved from studying with a fascination of music composition and theory into now story composition and theory over the past 20 years. They're absolutely parallel. And that's what my career is like you had mentioned in the intro, teaching leaders how to excel through the stories they tell. And that means moving from being an intuitive storyteller, which all of us Homo sapiens are, into an intentional storyteller using the proven frameworks like the and, but, therefore, and the story cycle system, the hero's journey to be able to really hook into the hearts of your audiences.
Ugh, so cool. It's so interesting how you just never know what something like just playing piano with your grandma, like, leads into this whole new world of curiosity in other areas. What does what role does music play in your life today?
Oh, a very, very dominant role now. I'm not one to really sit around and listen to a lot of pop, rock, and that kind of stuff. I did that growing up, and now it's kind of like I've heard it all. But I look at music and where it shows up in all of our lives, in our writing, in the rhythm of how maybe you're reading something, launching a new product, finding the right tone, the tonality, and the pace for that. That music now to me is so deeply embedded in what I do and what I really believe all of us do. I'm just kind of more tuned towards it because I have studied it since I was in the third grade, and I've applied it in storytelling. I still listen to a lot of music. Don't get me wrong, but mine is much more ethereal, for lack of a better term. And how does music, just everything I mentioned about it, work in our lives day in and day out in the background, and we don't even realize it. The principles of music.
It's It's so fascinating to me because I love music as I mean, most people say they love
Sure,
music and poetry, like, poetry is music,
absolutely.
and I always wonder when there's a song that particularly I get I'm one of those that I can get real fixated on a song, so maybe for, like, a month, I'll listen to it over and over and over, but I often wonder, is it the melody? Is it the lyrics? Like, what is it about the song? And so there's so it's same thing like with a story. Sometimes you'll hear a story and it just resonates. It just hits you. And I feel that way about music and poetry and good writing. It's like they get things right that seem you when you get it right, it's almost like you don't know how they created that. But when you hear bad writing or when you don't like a song, it's like it's so I'm that's what I love to look at. Like, why does this work and this doesn't?
That's
Why does
right.
this piece of music why is it getting all the publicity and this one didn't? Like, is it just promotion or advertising, or is it really the way that the words are structured, or like how do you get it right? So it's like you think about music, how do you get music right? How do you get a story right? So how can one study, how can one kind of more get a little bit more curious or just
Mhm.
think through how this how looking through this stuff can help us in all areas of our lives?
Yeah, well, I turned to Hollywood. I mean, it was back in 2006, and I had been running my ad agency for 10 years at that point, Kate, and it was really traditional advertising because we didn't have the internet, really. Yeah, the first 10 years I ran it. And so radio, TV, print, outdoor direct mail, public relations events, that kind of thing. And then the internet showed up, and I quickly realized that while our clients used to own the influence of mass media because they could pay for it, well, the masses were becoming the media. And we all know now what that has meant. 20 years later, this absolute onslaught of communication noise coming at us. And really, the only way to hack through it is using story structure. So, how can people learn how to do this? Is study story structure. It's there for a reason. Stories are like the software that drives the hardware of our meaning making brain. And stories are simply the algorithm, the framework, like the and, but, therefore. Whenever I'm teaching or coaching anybody about story, I start with the and, but, therefore, the ABT framework. To me, it is the DNA of story of setup, problem, resolution. The and is a statement of agreement. The but is a statement of contradiction or the problem you're going to help solve for. And the therefore is the way forward. Here's how we fix that. So to get very familiar with that framework, first and foremost, and then make it your own. You bring your own voice to it and whatever, but follow that framework because what we have learned is that our subconscious limbic, primal limbic brain, which is our decision making center, which is our survival center, which is our buying center, loves to get information using the framework of setup, problem, resolution, agreement, contradiction, consequence. And then, of course, I studied Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. When I that back in Hollywood. Our son was going to Chapman University Film School at the time. And this is when I was looking for an answer of like, how do we hack through this noise and what does Hollywood know about it? So I said, Parker, send me your books and your recorded lectures when you're done with them, since I'm paying for them, because I want to know what does Hollywood know about storytelling to be competitive storyteller, the most competitive storytelling market in the world. And that's when I learned about the hero's journey. And Kate, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, well, this is a customer journey. This is an ad agency owner journey. This is a prospect journey. This is my journey. Why don't they teach this fundamental framework to story to people in the advertising marketing world? Nobody had ever heard about it before, including myself, in our line of work. And so I just rigorously studied, how does it work? Why does it work? Just like my music composition and theory days, the sonata allegro form perfected by Mozart is simply the 3-act structure of exposition, development, resolution. It's a tripartite structured story that our brain loves. Here's the setup. Here's the problem we're solving for. Here's the way forward. So that's my long-winded and probably over-passionate way of saying, go and study 2 basic frameworks. Number 1, the and, but, therefore. Get that down because you can use it in anything. And then some of the larger frameworks like our story cycle system, which is inspired by the hero's journey.
Is there an example that you can give of the and, but, therefore, like maybe with a client you work with or someone that you help, like to figure this process
Sure.
out?
Yeah. So here's an example of it. There's an auto dealership up in Quebec, Canada, Prate Auto Partes. That's, Quebecois, French, however you say that, for Ready Car Go. They specialize in selling used cars to at-risk buyers, people that have bad credit. Now, Andre Martin Hobbs, the owner of it, came to me in 2017 following a story presentation in social media marketing world and said, I've just launched this new car dealership. I would like you to help us pull the brand story together. And I was kind of reluctant because I'm kind of thinking used cars, say cash, at-risk buyers, that sounds kind of smarmy. Until Andre told me, no, their business model is to help Canadians get back on their feet. Now, these are people that maybe have lost their money, gone bankrupt because of the global recession, back in 2008. Maybe it was a health problem that sucked up all their money. Maybe it's a divorce. He says, these are good Canadians that have fallen on hard times. I want to help get them back on their feet. And I want to do it by selling them a car that they can make their payments on for 2 years. And if they do that, they will repair their credit. So when they would come in to buy a car, before they would sell them anything, they made them go through a 2 to 3 hour financial planning program where the people would reveal, here's what my finances are. And then Andre and his team would only put them in a car they could actually afford. Now, they might want to have that F-250 over there, but you know what? They're getting the Volkswagen because you could afford that. And our goal is to get you back on your feet. And then they would follow up with them. So I thought, this is amazing. So the and, but, therefore, we came up for their brand unique value proposition, or led to the UVP, is you speak from the audience's perspective first. So I'm going to say I'm speaking to you, the at-risk Canadian car buyer. You want the freedom of owning your own car and the convenience it brings to your life. That's our statement of agreement. You're getting them nodding yes. We are simply setting the stage. That's Act 1. Now we throw the pivot, but you have lousy credit. Just what it is, period. Therefore, imagine owning the car of your dreams with Prate Auto Partes, your vehicle to financial freedom. So a very short little and, but, therefore, setup, problem resolution, statement of agreement. You want the freedom of owning a new car and the convenience it provides. But now the statement of contradiction, you have rotten credit. Okay, now we got to solve for that. Therefore, when you buy your car, Prate Auto Partes, we are going to put you in your vehicle to financial freedom. Well, he built his entire business model off of that and, but, therefore, in that unique value proposition. They ended up growing by 400% and became the fastest growing car auto dealership in Canada. And they have stories of people jumping on buses 8 hours away and riding out to Quebec to be able to buy a car from them.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't know if so as you're talking, Park, I'm thinking the and but for my business. I'm like, what is that?
And but
Which
therefore, let's build one. Let's build one real quick, Kate.
okay.
Let's put you on the hot seat.
Okay.
And I'm gonna have to look down and write as I go here because I can't memorize all this stuff. Kate, and let's have it focused on this show.
Okay.
Who is your number one audience for this show? How would you describe them?
I would describe them as ambitious professionals.
Okay. And what do they want relative to what you are going to offer them on the show? They may not even know what your offering is yet. You're kind of foreshadowing it, but you are saying, and this is what you want. What does the ambitious professional want that they'll get from this show?
The listeners of the show, to grow personally and professionally, to feel like they're living a fulfilling life.
Okay. And now we're going to raise the stakes with our and in this. And why is that important to them?
That's important to them because yeah, okay. I might have gotten my butt wrong, but the people that listen to this show, they honestly, they want when I say they wanna live a fulfilling life, it really comes down to they want to, be creating. Like, they want to leverage their creativity, and that's important to them because it's their superpower. Like, they know that if they're gonna be the best version of themselves, like, they have to be able to be creative and and use the gifts that they've been given.
Great. Okay. Now, let's go to the but. But why is that not currently happening in this life? And first, what is the negative emotion they're feeling because of what problem as to why this is not happening in their life? But are they frustrated?
They're frustrated, but it's typically themselves. Like, they are the ones holding themselves back. Like, they're letting these excuses stop them, whether it's perfectionism or feeling like they're not enough or overwhelm,
Okay.
or they're waiting for inspiration. Like, they're in this space of they love hearing the stories of people that are creating because it helps inspire them to keep creating what it is that they are wanting to create in their
Yeah.
life.
But they're stuck. But they feel stuck because they are not acting on their impulses to create.
Yes.
Okay. What are they going to feel like when they start doing what you ask them to do or what they learn from your show? This is now the therefore statement of consequence. What's a positive emotion?
They feel inspired, encouraged. They feel like it's that movement. It's like they feel like they after they listen to an episode, they're like ready to take action. Like, they feel like it's attainable. Like, the ideas that have stopped them in the past of it not being right or perfect or whatever it is, they're like, "Oh no, it's all about it's all about the creative process, like, to keep going."
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're going to feel inspired, engaged, ready to move forward. And why? What is it that they're going to learn? Is it your systematic approach to creativity, to building creative, or what is the thing, the physical thing that they get from listening to you or following your systems that are going to trigger this?
Well, Park, according to Story Cycle Genie, I need to create my system.
Okay. Okay.
But it's really, I mean, technically, the system, although it's not formalized, it really is around the creative practice, like developing a creative practice that you will stick with every day, even in the messy middle. Like, that's
Okay.
really what people get out of it.
Great. So I just wrote all this down. I'm just going to kind of wing it here real quick. But there's a method to my madness. I want you to always identify your audience, place them at the center of the story. The first thing you do, you're showing that you understand them. And then what do they want and why it's important to them? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to when I was really thinking about my audience, one of the things that I remember sharing with a group of people that, when I really wanted to get super targeted, I thought of the ambitious an ambitious professional with a creative soul. Like, that's who these people are because, yes, they are a professional, but, like, they have so much creativity inside of them. So, a lot of listeners either have a business or they work for another company, but they all have a creative project, whether it's a podcast, a blog, a YouTube channel, like, they're creating something, whether it's for their business or just for fun on the side. So, like, there is that creative soul component.
Yeah. So it's something like then, you are an ambitious professional with creativity at your soul. And if you could just find that spark and that creative process to build, to develop the creative you want, then you will achieve the fulfilling life you're looking for. But currently you feel stuck because everything, is holding you back from just being the creative person you are blessed to be. Therefore, imagine having your creative world explode in all the positive ways around you by listening to the guests that come on my show. Creatives that have been able to build a body of work because they follow a process, they follow a system, and most of all, they follow their heart. Something like that, but it follows a framework of and, but, therefore. Identify your audience, what they want and why that's important to them. Now, what you're doing is you're showing them that you understand them and you appreciate what they want and why it's important to them. Then you're demonstrating empathy in the but section, but you feel stuck. You're like, yeah, gosh, Kate, you understand me because you're letting all this stuff hold you back. Therefore, now we're going to come from the polarity of being stuck to free yourself and your creativity by listening to the creators on my podcast that have the proven processes and systems that bring their creativity, that they follow, and most importantly, how they follow their heart or something like that. So it is a 3-act structure, but you can see I brought my own voice to it as I kind of butchered that, but I'm going from your input on it. So I would hand that back to you, Kate, and say, now make it your own, but make sure that you follow that sequence. And but, therefore, because our primal limbic, pattern-seeking, problem-solving, decision-making, buying limbic brain loves to receive information and stories in that form.
Why do you think, because as I'm listening, and thank you so much for doing that. That was so fun. Real-time coaching. I love it. I hope that everyone listening is like be thinking about how to frame this for yourself, because I think one of the challenges, and I have this conversation with so many of my friends around, like, when they share with me, "Oh, I don't know what content to create or what next video to write, or can you read the landing page and does this make sense?" Why is it so easy for a third-party person to look at someone else's content and think, "Easy, I could create this story simply," because we're looking at it from the outside in. But with yourself, it's like, why does it feel sometimes so hard to create the narrative to tell a story, and whether it's a website or even just a video or for through your YouTube channel, whatever it is that you're creating?
Yeah. Fine, because I think the reason it's very natural. Number one is, I could talk about this and I could talk about that and I could talk about this and I could even talk about that. Find the one thing. What is the one thing you are solving for? What is the one pain point you are going to solve for in that landing page, in that thought leadership article, in that video? Too often we're all over the place. Well, people argue, Park, I solve lots of things. My brand does more than just one thing. I go, I know, but our brain doesn't care. Our brain, it's a survival mechanism first and foremost. And if you throw 2 things at it, it gets pissed off. Give it one thing at a time. So as the writer, storyteller, and I love to start with the ABT as a strategy document too. If I'm writing a thought leadership piece, the very first thing I do, Kate, is write down the but statement, the problem. What am I solving for in this thought leadership? Once I get that down, I go, okay, that's great. Then I go up and backfill the and statement. Who am I talking to? This audience, what do they want and why is it important to them? But they don't have it because of this problem. And therefore, here's the rest of the intel on how to solve that problem. So I think it's just a matter of focus. You gotta get focused. Some of the best songs I ever wrote, I mean, my little ditties, the ones that really move people, they're the simplest ones. And I sit there as a composition theory guy and go, it's so basic, it's so stupid, it's so simple, but it has a singular little hook. It has some polarity in it, you know, so you're building off contrast, but it's usually very, very simple. Do you know who Ben Folds Five is? Ben Folds is a great, great piano player. He's one of my favorites. You know, I grew up on Elton John and Billy Joel, and I really didn't find another great storytelling piano player until Ben Folds came along in the early 1990s. During COVID, he was stuck in Sydney, Australia, and he wasn't touring, of course. So he goes on, what is it, Patreon? And for $9 a month, I subscribe to his channel, and every week he does a live broadcast to all of us, you know, Patreon folks, for an hour to an hour and a half. And he's sitting by his piano and he's talking about music. He's talking about writing. He takes messages. You could send him recordings of his songs. He would listen to them right there in front of everybody and then give you a critique on them and whatever. It was unbelievable for $9 a month. I couldn't believe it. And one time I, you know, simply asked him, I said, how long does it take you to write a song? And he goes, well, sometimes it can take 30 minutes. Sometimes it can take 3 years. But he goes, the ones that take 30 minutes are always my hits. They always have a core, simple theme to them that just seems to come out of me. The ones that take 3 years are just me perfecting my craft and never see the light of day. So and then of course I asked him, does every song begin, you know, as a story in your head first? And he kind of looked at me and goes like, well, of course, you got to have a story first before you can bring the music to it. Anyways, I just thought that was so interesting in that I think it plays to all of us creators too. Stop overthinking. Get down to that one thing. What's the one theme that you're creating on? Run down that for a while and see how it works. Maybe it's just going to come, you know, flesh out for you immediately. Maybe it's the wrong theme, but you won't know it until you get into it a little ways. But it then may reveal another theme, another direction. So I think that's what keeps people from really doing what they need to do is too much going on in their head. Focus on the one thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such great advice because that is a challenge because we all have these, "Oh, I can talk about this," and I like what you just said, I'm like, that is how I feel sometimes when I'm about to sit down to record a video. It's like and you don't want it to feel, like, so basic, you want it to speak to the right person, and so to have that framework to develop in what it is that you're creating you've been in the advertising world, prior to social media. Obviously, the landscape has changed. Storytelling has changed because we have so many more ways to share story. It's been so interesting just to see how many not only businesses use social and different platforms to build their business, but also how many people have become personal brands and they have millions of followers, and that's literally what they do for a living. What do you see the differences are between the people that really make it versus those that have just been trying for years and just still they can't seem to grow an audience?
Yeah, I think that they are not personally living into their most powerful stories. There's something off about their own story. They have maybe been reluctant or didn't have the courage to really embrace what their story really is. So people feel that they're on the fringes. They might be close, but they just don't have it dialed in yet. And I'll say that, you know, people ask me this all the time, how storytelling evolved and changed. And I say it hasn't. It's the same exact structure that our ancestors used to navigate and survive the savannah is the same type of narrative and story structure we use today to navigate and survive this onslaught of communication coming at us. 99% of people don't actually use story. They're saying they're storytellers, they're saying they're storytelling experts, but they're not really. They don't understand the templates and the frameworks to use that truly makes a story. So I think the influencers that are really powerful are the ones whose people have bought into their story and say, I know Kate's story. I get Kate's story. I love Kate's story. I'm going to follow Kate. But now let's say Kathy's out there, and Kathy, for some reason, is not completely in sync with her own story for a fear of some sort, maybe even something she doesn't realize. You can feel it as an audience member. You know something isn't quite right, so that trust isn't being built. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. I sign off on every one of my podcasts of remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make sure that one's epic and make sure it's accurate.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, and you did a TED Talk, which I'm so fat a TEDx talk, and I'm very interested in how people develop their TED Talks because obviously it's a really big deal. Not everybody can get on those stages.
Mhm.
And you started it, or I mean, really a big part of it is around how when we think about storytelling, it feels very big. Like we have to have this big, huge, elaborate story. But you talk about how, no, it's finding the moments. Like, what are the moments in life? And how can we kind of think through, like, it was funny when I was listening to it because I had somebody reach out to me just the other day and she just wrote a book and she sent me an email saying, I really want to get on more podcasts. And I wrote this book. I don't know. I don't know if my story is really any good or if like people want to hear. And I'm thinking, well, stop right there. You wrote a book. Obviously, like we all have stories, and like no matter how small it might seem, like it's going to resonate with someone else. And so, how can we kind of reframe our mindset so that it helps us kind of move past fear, so that we can create whether it's like that creative project that we're working on or in our business, right? Like people who do business with people that they like. And so to understand that story, you're going to connect with more people that are going to want to work with you. So how can we kind of shift our mindset into understanding that your story doesn't have to be huge in order for it to be
Yeah.
impactful?
I love that question because you're exactly right, Kate. People aren't actually interested in your overarching narrative. They will be eventually. What they're really interested are the moments in time things change for you. It could have been a negative moment. It could have been a positive moment. It could have been a moment that surprised you because your curiosity took you one direction and you went, another direction. And then in that TEDx talk, it's like, stop looking for your story and find your scenes, those moments that have defined and informed who you are today. Share those moments and your story will find you. So, for instance, I did something radical in most people's minds at the age of 55. I wound down my agency of 20 years and went off and built the business of story so that I could consult, teach, coach, and speak on the power of story around the world versus running an ad agency. And people, especially a couple of my brothers who had built companies and sold them, said, why didn't you sell your agency, Park and Co? And I said, because I would have been beholden to the buyer and I would have had to continue building it for another 5 years in something that didn't inspire me anymore. But I had been thinking about this for several years and I never had the guts to do it, Kate. And then one morning, it was September 5th, I'll never forget it, 2015, I woke up with an enormous pit in my stomach. And I go, what is that there for? I didn't normally wake up like that. And I kind of had to close my eyes, do a little meditation. I go, what is this? And it was basically the universe saying, stop what you're doing, wrap it up, and move on to the next chapter, which was the business of story. And I did. I went in that day and spoke with Luis Medina, our VP of Creative at that point, and just said, look, I'm going to spend the rest of the year wrapping this up. I'm going to hand our clients off to other agencies or you could take as many as you like to start building your own agency. I'm going to go and do this other thing, which was unheard of in our world, in our industry, and especially at my age, 55. But you know what? I am going to turn 65 on February 14th. And it's been 10 years. It's been the most marvelous thing I've ever done in my career. But I had to have the guts to do it. And I had to be paying attention to the narrative and the story that was happening around me because story does have energy to it. And when you hear these right stories or you hear the wrong stories, you can feel that positive or negative pull from it. And especially in your life, if you are living the wrong story, you are feeling it in exhaustion, in terror, in fear, in frustration, in lack of money, you name it. These are all telltales that you are living the wrong story. That new story may take you a while to get, but you got to get on journey, on the path if you are ever going to enjoy the riches.
Oh, it's so cool that you did that in at that age just because so many people would have just it's so easy for us to just be complacent and just keep going, right? Like this is I'm just going to keep doing this for another 5, 10 years because it's what I know and to step out in faith and to start something new and to recognize that there's always time to dream. There's always the time to step into a new dream. And I love that you shared that the greatest story that you tell is the one that you tell yourself. So I'm wondering for somebody who is maybe in a same situation that you were 10 years ago, whether they're in their 40s or 50s and they're thinking, I like something's missing, I want more, or they want to make this transition. How can they maybe develop a better story that they can, like, visualize to work towards?
Yeah. Start with what you're talking about right there. Visualize it. Don't overthink it. Don't try to logically and rationally come to that story. What I've always liked to do, and like when we were creating campaigns for our customers and clients, I would say, okay, here's the message. It's kind of complex. We got to simplify it. Here's the pain point, whatever. I would literally go back to my office and close my eyes. And I guess it was meditative. I wasn't practicing meditation, but I'd ask myself, what does this feel like? And then I would just put it out there and I'm like, what does this feel like? And then all of a sudden I would start getting these strong sensations of maybe it feels something like this. Maybe it feels something like this. Maybe there's an even third feeling. And then my curiosity would take over and I would go studying that. And then I would find the aha moment. I go, that's it. That's right there. That's what led to winning an Emmy. It wasn't logistically thinking how to do this. It was how can I capture real life? What does that feel and look like? And then the spot just kind of came to me. So, for how you do this in your life, the universe had been telling me for several years, Kate, that you got to get out of this. You are not happy. This is going to kill you. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're not being fulfilled. So I finally listened to and I had been studying story, of course, for the 10 years prior to that. So it was an off ramp into a new area. It wasn't like all of a sudden I took up a whole new job of polishing bowling balls that had nothing to do with, advertising world. But what I'd have your people do is to sit back and just close their eyes, take a deep breath, go for some long walks, get the noise to stop, and ask yourself, what are you curious about? What would be a passionate thing that you could do that is going to bring challenge? These are some of the questions I ask myself. What would be the ultimate thing that I would want to do, but I'm not doing it right now because I'm so afraid of failing and looking stupid doing that? Just start bringing all that stuff into your world, and you are going to, I think, in a short amount of time, have a bit of an aha moment. Storytellers are in the wish granting business. Disney made an entire brand out of one word, wish. When you wish upon a star, you wish to be here, everything. Well, what do you wish for yourself? Put that into action. And as woo woo as it sounds, but I've seen it in my 40 plus years, the universe will conspire to help you get it. But you have to put that wish, that vision of that story out there in the world, and then pay attention to what it tells you back.
Yes, yes, you have to actually pay attention and do the thing. All
Yeah.
right, if one of your wishes is that you can get into Park's brain and have him uncover what your brand looks and feels like to other people today, this is kind of why you developed a Story Cycle Genie for
Yeah.
people to be able to use to help them create better stories. So tell us about Story Cycle Genie. How did you decide to come up with this and what can people expect?
I'll be quick with that because I know we're running out of time here, Kate. So all of the knowledge that I learned over the past years, 2 decades in story frameworks, from the hero's journey to our story cycle system to the Pixar way to the and but therefore. We have codified it. I've been using the story cycle for 20 years to help grow brands by as much as 600%. But it's a difficult process. It takes 2 to 3 to 4 months to really put together and make work. One of my clients who went through it with his digital agency out of Sacramento called Blue River, they also had a content management platform called Mira. We did this back in 2017, brought their story together. They grew exponentially, ended up selling both the agency and the SaaS platform. And Sean Schroeder's his name. He came back to me right after COVID and said, I love the story cycle system. I've been using it with other people, but it's too hard. It takes too long. Let's make an AI out of it. I know how to do this, and let's bring it in. And it's like a custom AI. And we are even kind of hesitant to say AI because it is AI driven, but what it really is your own brand content agency in a bottle. It's narrative native in that it's guided by our story cycle system. It has the and but therefore at its core. And like you saw, Kate, I ran your brand through it. I just gave it your email, your URL, and I put in there your podcast, link to your podcast, and I put in there a link to your LinkedIn bio. And in under 2 minutes, it provided an assessment of how you and your brand story are showing up in the world. In storytelling terms, think of it as mirror, mirror on the wall. How is my brand showing up for all? It gives you that assessment in 2 minutes. And then I said, okay, I'm going to just assume this assessment is 90% accurate. Now create the entire narrative strategy based on the story cycle genie for Kate Volman. And in about another 5 minutes, it created that complete, comprehensive strategy document, of which I sent you a PDF as well. And it gives you all of the story points that you need to be talking about and to which audiences to be able to really carve out your niche in the world. And as you've already tried with another one of your brands, is anybody here can go to storycyclegenie.ai and get a free brand story assessment. Just put in your name, email address, and your URL. Don't need a credit card, nothing like that. And in under about 60 seconds, it's going to give you a grade from A+ to F- and a 14-point story assessment that validates what you're doing well, reveals gaps that you could easily fix for a stronger story, and will even inspire you with new ways to think about your story.
It's so cool. I was so appreciative that you sent me that over around this podcast. I told Park before we started recording, I said, it was so helpful because I've been thinking about some of the content I want to create and looking through the data that you sent me. It validated some of the ideas that I wanted and helped me solidify some other ones that I would want to create that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. It's really awesome. So if you are interested, definitely check that out. Also, a Business of Story podcast is you have some really incredible guests coming on. You have lots of guests that you've already interviewed, but you shared with me a couple that I'm very much looking forward to. So check that podcast out. And Park, I always ask my guests at the end of every episode, what is one activity that we can do in 10 minutes or less to live a more creative life?
Meditate. Turn everything off. Do it ritually. Every morning, ideally, I believe, is the best. Even before you have that cup of coffee, even if you're a little bit groggy or whatever, get up, find a quiet place, and sit down. And you don't have to be like an expert at meditation. Just sit, be quiet, and listen to the world around you. Listen to what is coming in and out of your brain. Try to be removed from you and your brain, and just pay attention to what's coming and going in there. And you'll find that has a tremendous power on helping you really focus your creative energies in maybe even some surprising ways, surprising to you, but the universe really knows what you're about and what you need, what is good for you. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, Park, thank you so much. Thanks for the free coaching that I got today. I appreciate it.
Time, Kate. You know that it's so great to reconnect with you after all these years.
Yes. And now I'm excited to stay connected. We won't let another 10 years go by. And I'm so appreciative that you came on the show. Thank you so much. Those of you that are listening, thank you so much for being here, for always coming back. And I hope, as always, that you feel inspired, that there was something that we talked about in this episode. I mean, you're still here listening, so there has to have been something that inspired you to move your creative projects forward. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, go create something.
Thanks, Kate.